The rain hammered against the penthouse windows as Diego stared at his phone, the message still glowing on the screen. 3 words that changed everything. She was Rossetti. His hands trembled as the realization hit him like a freight train. Cora, his wife of 3 years, the woman he'd left crying in the rain just hours ago for his mistress, wasn't just any woman. She was the heir to the Rossetti Empire, the most powerful rival family on the East Coast. The same family he'd been trying to make peace with for months, the same family that could either destroy him or make him the most powerful man in America. And he'd just thrown it all away for a night with Sophia. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against the marble floor like his world had just shattered around him. Tonight we have an absolutely devastating story that will leave you questioning everything. Please let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support makes all the difference in bringing you these emotional stories. Cora Martinez had always known her place in Diego's world, and it wasn't at the top. As she stood in the marble foyer of their Las Vegas penthouse, adjusting the emerald necklace he'd given her for their anniversary, she could hear him on the phone in his office. His voice carried that edge it always had when discussing business, cold, calculating, dangerous. The Rossetti family is becoming a problem. Diego's voice drifted through the partially open door. They control too much of the East Coast. If we don't find a way to neutralize them soon, they'll push into our territory. Cora's blood ran cold. She pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding as she listened to her husband discuss the family she'd spent her entire life hiding from. The family that had shaped her into who she was, even though she'd never claimed her birthright. "Sir, there's been talk of a marriage alliance," came the voice of Marcus, Diego's right-hand man. "Word is, the old man Rossetti has a daughter. If we could arrange something." "Marriage alliances are for the weak." Diego's voice cut through the air like a blade. "I'm already married, and I don't need some Rossetti princess complicating my life. We handle this the traditional way." Cora's hands shook as she backed away from the door. For 3 years, she'd lived as Diego's wife, loving him with every fiber of her being while keeping the most dangerous secret of her life. She wasn't Cora Martinez, the orphaned waitress he'd rescued from a life of poverty. She was Cora Rossetti, daughter of Vincent Rossetti, heir to an empire that rivaled Diego's own. The sound of footsteps made her quickly move to the living room, pretending to arrange flowers as Diego emerged from his office. At 32, he was devastatingly handsome. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair perfectly styled, wearing a tailored black suit that emphasized his powerful frame. The dragon tattoo on his neck was partially visible above his collar, a symbol of the power he wielded in the underworld. "You look beautiful tonight," he said, but his voice was distracted, his mind clearly elsewhere. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Diego, I need to tell you something important." His phone buzzed, and he glanced at it, his expression shifting. "Not now. Cora, I have to go." "But it's about—" "I said not now." His tone was sharp, final. "I have business to handle." As he moved toward the door, Cora grabbed his arm. "Please, just 5 minutes. What I have to say could change everything between us." Diego paused, looking down at her hand on his sleeve. For a moment she thought she saw something soften in his dark eyes. Then his phone buzzed again and the moment was gone. "Whatever it is, it can wait. I'm meeting someone important tonight." The words hit her like a physical blow. She knew who he was meeting. Sophia Reyes, the stunning brunette who'd been circling Diego for months, like a predator sensing weakness. Cora had seen the way Diego looked at her at social events, the way his attention lingered when Sophia spoke. "Don't go to her," Cora whispered, her voice breaking. "Please, Diego, stay with me tonight. Let me tell you who I really am." Diego's expression hardened. "Who you really are. You're my wife, Cora. That's all you need to be. But there's so much you don't know. I know everything I need to know." He pulled his arm free from her grasp. "You were a waitress working 3 jobs to survive. I gave you a life beyond your wildest dreams. That should be enough." The casual dismissal in his voice shattered something inside her. "And what if it's not enough anymore?" Diego stopped at the door, his hand on the handle. "Then maybe you should remember how easily dreams can become nightmares." The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Cora watched as the man she loved walked out of their home, choosing another woman over her, not knowing he was walking away from the one person who could give him everything he'd ever wanted. As the door closed behind him, Cora sank onto the white leather sofa, her hands trembling. She pulled out her phone and scrolled to a number she hadn't called in 3 years. Her father's number. Vincent Rossetti, the man who'd been searching for her since the day she'd disappeared to start a new life. Her finger hovered over the call button. One phone call would change everything. One phone call would reveal the truth that could either unite two powerful families or destroy them both. But as she sat in the silence of the penthouse, surrounded by the luxury Diego's love had provided, she couldn't bring herself to make that call. Not yet. Outside, thunder rumbled across the Las Vegas sky, and the first drops of rain began to fall. The Bellagio's private dining room was dimly lit, candles flickering across the intimate table where Diego sat across from Sofia Reyes. She was stunning in a way that demanded attention, long dark hair cascading over bare shoulders, red lips that curved in a knowing smile, wearing a black dress that left little to the imagination. "You seem distracted tonight," Sofia purred, reaching across the table to trace her fingers along Diego's hand. "Trouble at home?" Diego's jaw tightened. "My home life isn't up for discussion." "Of course not," Sofia said, but her smile suggested she knew exactly what was troubling him. "I just hate to see you unhappy. A man like you deserves someone who understands your world, your needs." "And you think you understand my world?" Sofia leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I understand power, Diego. I understand what it takes to build an empire and what it takes to keep it. Your wife. She's lovely, I'm sure, but she's not from our world. She doesn't understand the sacrifices required." Diego found himself nodding, even as a part of him rebelled against her words. Cora had always been different from the women in his circle. She was gentle where they were hard, innocent where they were calculating. It was what had drawn him to her in the first place, but lately it felt like a weakness he couldn't afford. "She wanted to talk tonight," he admitted, surprising himself with the confession. "Said it was important, that it could change everything between us. And you chose to be here instead." Sofia's smile was triumphant. "Because deep down, you know that whatever she has to say won't change the fundamental truth. You need a partner, not a pet." The words stung because they echoed thoughts Diego had been having for months. As his empire grew, as the threats became more complex, he found himself wishing for a wife who could stand beside him in the darkness instead of one he had to protect from it. "She's been acting strange lately," Diego continued, the wine loosening his tongue. "Nervous, secretive. Sometimes I catch her on the phone, and she hangs up quickly when I enter the room." Sofia's eyes sharpened with interest. "Secretive how?" "I don't know. It's probably nothing." Diego drained his wineglass, trying to push away the nagging feeling that he was missing something important. "She's probably planning some surprise or charity event. She's always trying to save someone." "Or maybe," Sofia said carefully, "she's not as innocent as she appears. In our world, Diego, the most dangerous enemies are often the ones closest to us." The suggestion hung in the air between them like poison. Diego wanted to dismiss it immediately, but doubt had already taken root. Cora's strange behavior, her secretive phone calls, her desperate need to tell him something tonight. What if it wasn't what he thought? "I should go," Diego said suddenly, standing from the table. "Should you?" Sofia rose as well, moving closer until she was just inches away. "Or should you stay and stop pretending that your marriage is something it's not?" Before Diego could respond, Sofia's lips were on his. The kiss was fire and demand, everything his marriage had stopped being months ago. For a moment, he lost himself in it, in the promise of a woman who understood his world without needing protection from it. When they broke apart, Sofia's eyes were bright with victory. "Your wife doesn't have to know. This can be our secret." Diego's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and saw Cora's name on the screen. "Please come home. I'm ready to tell you everything. It's about my family, about who I really am. It could change both our lives." He stared at the message, torn between the woman in front of him who offered uncomplicated desire and the wife at home who seemed to be offering something he couldn't quite understand. "What does she say?" Sofia asked, reading his expression. "Nothing important," Diego lied, deleting the message without responding, just asking when I'll be home. And when will you be home? Diego looked at Sofia, at the promise in her eyes, and made a choice that would haunt him forever. Not tonight. As rain began to patter against the restaurant windows, Diego silenced his phone and chose passion over truth, desire over love, the known over the unknown. He had no idea that at that very moment, Cora was sitting in their penthouse, finally ready to reveal the secret that could have made him the most powerful man in America. Instead, she was about to become the woman he lost forever. Cora paced the length of their penthouse living room, her phone clutched in her trembling hands. The rain had intensified, drumming against the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glittering Las Vegas Strip. Each flash of lightning illuminated her reflection, a woman caught between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. She'd sent the text to Diego an hour ago, finally ready to reveal the truth about her identity. The truth about being Vincent Rossetti's daughter, about the empire she'd walked away from to live a normal life. The truth that could unite their families and make Diego more powerful than he'd ever dreamed. But he hadn't responded. Her phone rang, and for a moment her heart leaped, thinking it was Diego. Instead, she saw a number she'd been dreading for weeks. "Hello, Papa," she whispered into the phone. Cora. Vincent Rossetti's voice was gravelly, aged by years of commanding respect through fear. "My sources tell me your husband is planning something against our family." Cora's blood turned to ice. "What do you mean?" "Don't play innocent with me, child. I know you've been hiding in plain sight for 3 years playing house with Diego Moretti, but the game is over. He's been asking questions about our operations, making moves against our territory. If you can't control your husband, I will." "Papa, please, let me talk to him. Let me explain." "Explain what? That my daughter has been living with the enemy? That she's been sharing his bed while he plots our destruction?" Vincent's voice turned cold. "You have 24 hours to bring him to the table for negotiations, or I handle this the old way." The line went dead, leaving Cora staring at her phone in horror. She knew what the old way meant. Blood in the streets, bodies in the desert, war between two of the most powerful families in America. She tried calling Diego again, but it went straight to voicemail. Desperation clawed at her chest as she realized what was happening. While she sat here ready to bridge two worlds, Diego was somewhere else, probably with Sofia, choosing another woman over the wife who could give him everything. The sound of the elevator made her heart race. Diego was home. She could fix this. She could tell him everything and make him understand that she wasn't just his wife. She was his salvation. But when the elevator doors opened, it wasn't Diego who stepped out. It was Marcus, Diego's lieutenant, his face grim and his suit soaked from the rain. "Mrs. Moretti," he said, his voice carefully neutral, "I need to speak with you." "Where's Diego?" Cora demanded. Marcus hesitated, and in that hesitation, Cora saw the truth. "He's handling business tonight. He asked me to come check on you." "He's with her, isn't he?" The words came out as barely a whisper. "He's with Sofia." Marcus's silence was answer enough. Cora felt something break inside her chest, a pain so sharp it was almost physical. "I need to see him. I need to tell him something important." "Ma'am, I don't think tonight is the right time. You don't understand." Cora's voice cracked with desperation. "I'm Vincent Rossetti's daughter. I'm the heir to the Rossetti Empire. Diego doesn't know, but if I don't tell him tonight, people are going to die." Marcus stared at her in shock, his face going pale. "What did you just say?" "I'm Cora Rossetti. I've been hiding my identity for 3 years. But my father knows about Diego's plans against our family. He's given me 24 hours to arrange negotiations, or he's going to start a war." "Jesus Christ," Marcus breathed. "Does Diego know?" "I've been trying to tell him, but he won't listen, and now he's with that woman instead of here where he should be." Tears streamed down Cora's face as the weight of everything crashed over her. "I gave up everything for him. I walked away from an empire, from my birthright, because I loved him, and he's throwing it all away for a woman who doesn't even care about him." Marcus ran a hand through his wet hair, clearly struggling to process this information. We need to find him. We need to tell him immediately. Where is he? Marcus hesitated again, and Cora saw the conflict in his eyes. Loyalty to his boss warred with the magnitude of what she'd just revealed. The Bellagio, he finally said. Private dining room. But Mrs. Moretti, you shouldn't. Cora was already moving, grabbing her coat and heading for the elevator. I'm going to get my husband. Ma'am, please, let me handle this. Let me call him. No! Cora's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I've spent 3 years being the obedient wife, the grateful rescue project. But I'm Vincent Rossetti's daughter, and it's time I started acting like it. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Marcus was already pulling out his phone, his hands shaking as he tried to reach Diego. But the call went straight to voicemail, just like all the others. Outside, the storm was getting worse, and Cora Rossetti, was about to walk into the rain to fight for a marriage that might already be over. She had no idea that in a few hours she would be standing in that rain alone, watching the man she loved choose another woman over her, not knowing that he was choosing war over peace, destruction over salvation. The last time Diego would ever see his wife, she would be crying in the rain, and he would be too blind to realize he was watching his empire crumble along with her tears. The Bellagio's private dining room had become a sanctuary of intimacy and betrayal. Diego sat across from Sophia, the remains of their dinner forgotten as she leaned closer, her hand resting on his thigh beneath the white tablecloth. The wine had flowed freely, and with it, Diego's reservations had dissolved. You're different from her, Sophia murmured, her fingers tracing patterns on his leg. Stronger. You don't need someone to protect, you need someone who can stand beside you in the fire. Diego found himself nodding, his judgment clouded by alcohol and desire. Cora doesn't understand the pressures of this life. She wants me to be someone I'm not. She wants you to be weak, Sophia said, her voice like honey laced with poison. But I see who you really are. I see the man who built an empire from nothing, who commands respect through strength and intelligence. The flattery was intoxicating, feeding an ego that had been bruised by months of feeling like a stranger in his own home. Cora's gentle nature, once endearing, had begun to feel like a constant reminder of the softness he couldn't afford. She's been acting so strange lately, Diego continued, the words spilling out of him. Secretive phone calls, nervous energy. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really knew her at all. Sophia's eyes glittered with something that might have been triumph. In our world, the people closest to us are often the most dangerous. Trust is a luxury we can't afford. Before Diego could respond, the dining room door burst open. Marcus stood in the doorway, his suit dripping with rain, his face a mask of barely controlled panic. Boss, I need to speak with you. Now. Diego's expression darkened at the interruption. I'm busy, Marcus. Whatever it is can wait. No, sir, it can't. Marcus's eyes flicked to Sophia, then back to Diego. It's about your wife. It's urgent. Sophia's hand tightened on Diego's thigh. Can't you see we're in the middle of something important? This is more important than you know, Marcus said, his voice tight with tension. Diego stood, irritation flashing in his dark eyes. Fine, 5 minutes. They stepped into the hallway, leaving Sophia alone at the table. Marcus grabbed Diego's arm, his grip desperate. Boss, your wife just told me something that changes everything. She's... Whatever Cora said, I don't want to hear it, Diego cut him off. I'm tired of her dramatics, her need for attention. Can't she see I'm trying to build something here? She's Vincent Rossetti's daughter. The words hit Diego like a physical blow. He stared at Marcus, certain he'd misheard. What did you say? Cora is Vincent Rossetti's daughter, the heir to the Rossetti Empire. She's been hiding her identity for 3 years. Diego's world tilted on its axis. The Rossetti family, the most powerful organization on the East Coast. The family he'd been trying to find a way to neutralize or ally with for months. The family that could make or break his expansion plans. That's impossible, he whispered. She told me herself. She said her father knows about your plans against their family. He's given her 24 hours to arrange negotiations, or he's starting a war. Diego's mind raced, pieces of a puzzle suddenly clicking into place. Cora's strange behavior, her secretive phone calls, her desperate need to tell him something important. She hadn't been hiding an affair or planning a surprise. She'd been hiding an empire. "Where is she now?" Diego demanded. "On her way here. Boss, she's coming to fight for your marriage. She's ready to reveal everything to save both families from a war." Diego felt the world spinning around him. His wife, his gentle, innocent wife, was Vincent Rossetti's daughter. The woman he'd been dismissing as weak and naive was the key to everything he'd ever wanted. And he was here with another woman. "I have to go," Diego said, pushing past Marcus toward the dining room. But as he reached for the door handle, it opened from the inside. Sophia emerged, her lipstick freshly applied, her dress slightly disheveled. "I was wondering what was taking so long," she purred, sliding her arms around Diego's neck. "I missed you." Before Diego could react, Sophia kissed him deeply, passionately, her body pressed against his in the hallway where anyone could see. And that's exactly when Cora arrived. She stood at the end of the hallway, her hair soaked from the rain, her coat dripping water onto the expensive carpet. Her face was a mask of devastation as she watched her husband in another woman's arms, watched him choose betrayal over the truth she'd come to share. "Cora," Diego breathed, pushing Sophia away, but it was too late. Cora's eyes met his across the distance, and in them he saw not just heartbreak but something else, a strength he'd never noticed before, a power that seemed to radiate from her very core. "I came to save us both," she said, her voice carrying clearly down the hallway. "I came to give you everything you ever wanted, but I see you've already made your choice." She turned and walked away, her spine straight, her head held high despite the tears streaming down her face. "Cora, wait," Diego called, starting after her, but Sophia grabbed his arm. "Let her go," Sophia whispered. "She's not worth it. Whatever game she's playing, whatever lie she's telling, she's Vincent Rossetti's daughter," Diego said, his voice hollow with realization. Sophia's face went white. "What?" But Diego was already running, chasing after the woman who could have given him the world, the woman he'd just lost forever, in a hallway filled with the scent of another woman's perfume and the bitter taste of his own stupidity. He reached the lobby just in time to see Cora disappearing into the storm, and he knew with a certainty that chilled him to the bone that he would never see her again. The rain fell like tears from a broken sky as Cora stood on the steps of the Bellagio, her coat providing little protection against the storm that mirrored the tempest in her heart. She could hear Diego calling her name from somewhere behind her, his voice desperate and raw, but she didn't turn around. For 3 years she had been Cora Moretti, the grateful wife who owed everything to her husband's generosity. But standing in the rain, watching the neon lights of Las Vegas blur through her tears, she remembered who she really was. She was Cora Rossetti, daughter of Vincent Rossetti, heir to an empire that stretched from New York to Miami. "Cora, please." Diego's voice was closer now, and she could hear his footsteps splashing through the puddles behind her. She turned slowly, and when Diego saw her face, he stopped dead in his tracks. Gone was the gentle, submissive woman he'd married. In her place stood someone he'd never seen before, a woman with steel in her spine and fire in her eyes. "You chose," and she said simply, her voice carrying over the sound of the rain. "In that hallway, when you had to decide between your wife and your mistress, you chose, and now you have to live with that choice." "I didn't know," Diego said, his expensive suit soaked through, his hair plastered to his head. "Marcus told me who you are. Cora, why didn't you tell me?" "I tried. The words came out like bullets, each one finding its mark. I tried tonight. I tried for weeks. But you were too busy with her to listen to your wife." Diego stepped closer, and Cora could see the desperation in his dark eyes. "You're Vincent Rossetti's daughter. Do you have any idea what this means?" "I know exactly what it means," Cora replied. "It means I could have given you the East Coast. It means I could have made you the most powerful man in America. It means our children could have inherited 2 empires instead of 1. "Our children?" Diego's voice cracked. Cora's hand moved instinctively to her stomach, and Diego's eyes followed the gesture. Understanding dawned on his face like a physical blow. "You're pregnant," he whispered. "I was going to tell you tonight. Everything. About my family. About the baby. About the future we could have had." Cora's voice broke, but she forced herself to continue. But you chose to be with her instead. Diego reached for her, but Cora stepped back. Don't. You made your choice, Diego. You chose passion over partnership, lust over love. You chose a woman who wants to use you over a wife who wanted to build an empire with you. I can fix this, Diego said desperately. I can make this right. We can still... No. The word cut through the rain like a blade. You can't fix this. You can't take back what I saw in that hallway. You can't undo the fact that when I needed you most, when our future hung in the balance, you were in another woman's arms. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating Cora's face, and Diego saw something in her expression that chilled him more than the rain. She looked like her father, powerful, unforgiving, dangerous. My father gave you 24 hours to come to the negotiating table, Cora continued. That offer died when you chose Sophia over me. Now you get to face the Rossetti family as an enemy instead of as family. Cora, please. I love you. No, you don't. Her voice was steady now, resolved. You love the idea of me. You love having someone to protect, someone to save. But you never loved me enough to listen to me, to trust me, to choose me when it mattered. She turned to go, but Diego grabbed her arm. Where will you go? Cora looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up at his face. Home. To my real family. To people who value what I have to offer instead of dismissing it. And our child will be raised as a Rossetti. They'll inherit an empire, just not the one you could have shared. Diego released her arm as if it had burned him. You can't do this. You can't take my child away from me. I'm not taking anything away from you, Cora said, her voice soft but final. You threw it all away yourself. A black sedan pulled up to the curb, and Cora walked toward it without looking back. Diego watched in horror as she got into the car, watched as the tinted windows rolled up, watched as the woman who could have given him everything disappeared into the night. As the car pulled away, Diego stood alone in the rain, finally understanding what he had lost. Not just a wife, not just a child, but an empire. Not just love, but power beyond his wildest dreams. His phone buzzed with a text message. With trembling hands, he opened it. War begins at dawn. You chose this. VR. Diego looked up at the penthouse windows of the Bellagio, where Sophia was probably waiting for him, and realized that he had traded everything for nothing. He had chosen a moment of passion over a lifetime of power, a mistress who wanted to use him over a wife who wanted to build a dynasty with him. The rain continued to fall, washing away the last traces of the life he could have had, and Diego Moretti stood alone in the storm, finally understanding that some choices can never be undone. Sometime later, when the war between the families had ended and the dust had settled, people would say that Diego Moretti lost everything in a single night. But they would be wrong. He had lost everything in a single choice, made in a hallway while his pregnant wife stood in the rain, watching her husband choose another woman over the empire she was ready to share with him. And that choice would haunt him for the rest of his life. Some time later, in a penthouse overlooking Central Park, Cora Rossetti stood at the window watching her 3-year-old daughter play with blocks on the expensive Persian rug. Little Isabella had Diego's dark hair and sharp features, but her eyes held the intelligence and strength of the Rossetti bloodline. The child would never know poverty, never know what it felt like to work 3 jobs just to survive. She would inherit an empire that now stretched from coast to coast, unified under the Rossetti name after the brief but decisive war that had eliminated Diego's organization entirely. Cora's phone buzzed with a message from her father. The Las Vegas properties are finally ours. Should we keep the penthouse where you used to live? She typed back quickly. Sell it. I have no use for monuments to my past mistakes. As she watched Isabella stack blocks into a tower, Cora reflected on the woman she used to be. That frightened girl who had hidden her identity for love was gone, replaced by someone who understood that true power came not from being saved, but from saving yourself. She had loved Diego with everything she had, but love without respect was just another form of prison. In the rain that night, watching him choose another woman over her, she had finally understood that she deserved more than gratitude disguised as love. Isabella looked up from her blocks and smiled, and Cora saw the future in her daughter's eyes. A future where women didn't have to choose between power and love, where they could demand both and accept nothing less. The empire was hers now, and someday it would be Isabella's, and unlike her mother, Isabella would never have to hide who she was for anyone. Outside, snow began to fall on the city that never slept, and Cora Rossetti smiled, finally at peace with the choice she had made in the rain all those years ago. Some storms, she had learned, were meant to wash away the past, so something stronger could grow in its place. This story has come to an end here. If this tale of love, betrayal, and redemption touched your heart, please show your support by liking and subscribing to our channel. Your engagement helps us continue bringing you these powerful stories of passion and transformation. Until next time, remember that sometimes the greatest strength comes from walking away from those who don't value what you bring to their life.